Welcome to Mapping the Memory by Means of Art discussion. My name is Katerina Fілюк. I'm a curator at Izolatia, platform for cultural initiatives in Kyiv, and co-founder of 89 Books publishing house. Today's event is linked to the Trees of Memory, Roots and Runners project that is currently on view at Lasnia. This discussion is organized by the cultural memory platform Past Future Art in partnership with Lasnia Center for Contemporary Art and the Ukrainian Institute. Today we will hear from Kshistov Водичко, Rishard Klющинський, and Oksana Довгополова, whom I will introduce shortly in a couple of seconds. Their presentations will address the issue of memory, history, relations between the two, and the traumatic past as it is represented in contemporary art. Following the presentations, we will have a short discussion and we'll try to answer questions which you can leave on swap cards. Now to introduce our speakers, first, Kshistov Водичко. Kshistov, give a wave. Thanks. Kshistov Водичко, artist and professor in residence of art, design, and the public domain at the Graduate School of Design at Harvard University. Next, Rishard Klющinський. Rishard, good evening.
Hi.
Rishard is a media art writer, curator, professor of cultural and media studies at Lodz University, chair of the Department of New Media and Digital Culture, professor at the Academy of Fine Arts in Lodz, artistic director of Arts Plus Science meeting program at Lasnia. And finally, Oksana Довгополова. Oksana, hi. Oksana is a doctor habilis in philosophy of history, professor at the Department of Philosophy of the Odessa Mechnikov National University, member of the Memory Studies Association, curator of the Past Future Art project. My sincere thanks to all of you for joining us today. And let's not lose time. I will now turn it over to Kshistov, and a gentle reminder, you have about 10 minutes for your presentation. Kshistov, please.
Hello.
Well, can you see this presentation, or it's okay.
Yes, you will see it.
Yeah.
You can go to slideshow.
Yeah. So I would like to present three projects. They all share one important thing. Those projects developed with people. Not only for people or on behalf of them, but with them. And they all are taking place in public space. We take advantage of public space as a space for communication. And what is also in common, those projects, that they are designed to create conditions for people who are not visible, who are not recognized, whose voice is not heard, who have difficulties to communicate, and who, most of whom are actually suffering post-traumatic stress as a result of their experiences. They are those invisible and unheard citizens of our cities. So I will start with the project that was developed in Tijuana, in Mexico, California, Northern California, Mexican Northern California. At the site of this project, public site, was El Centro Cultural, which is an important place in Tijuana, symbolically very important. It's actually the only really public space officially designated for events. And it's very strange shape. It's supposed to be, referring to some Maya goddess, but as you can see, it's faceless. Maya goddess. Faceless because most of very important people who should be speaking in this space are not here. They are maquiladora workers. 500 of those are, somewhere behind the horizon here, and they are economical base of the city. So I decided to offer that facade face for people to speak. They were using special equipment, in fact, so they could speak in real time and also in a pre-recorded mode. So it took about 1 year for them to find out what to say, how to speak with emotionally charged voice, so they would be finally heard with open face on that building. So the equipment was very simple, just a camera, microphone and lights, so to stabilize the face so it fit the facade. And lots of work was done to make that fitting. So people will speak through this la bola, they call it in Mexico, in Tijuana, as if it was their mask. So it's very easier to tell the truth through the mask. Masks actually are more truthful than face people, as we know from expressionist tradition. So here how it worked. So you were wearing this and speaking in real time. So the real face and face as a facade were at the same time accessible. The public reaction, of course, is very important here. So you could see, you could now see a little bit of
contar una experiencia que tuve con unos compañeros de la escuela. Íbamos en tercero de secundaria. Íbamos a una lunada, a Rosarito. Entonces, bueno, íbamos por la carretera. Eran 3 amigas y un amigo. Él iba manejando. Entonces, nos paró la policía, era una patrulla, eran 2 policías y nos dijeron que, bueno, le dijeron a mi amigo Héctor que iba a mucha velocidad. Entonces le pidió dinero un policía y pues él se negó, nos negamos porque le dijimos que no era justo, no era justo que nos pidiera dinero, no le íbamos a dar. Entonces nos pusimos al tú por tú, le empezamos a decir cosas a los policías que no le íbamos a dar dinero y ellos empezaron a golpear a Héctor. Entonces lo golpearon como con mucho coraje, con fuerza, patadas. Le dieron con la pistola le pegaban en la cabeza, en donde fuera. Entonces nosotros, por quererlo defender, un policía nos golpeó también con la cacha de la pistola y vimos a Héctor tirado en el piso todo sangrado. Y le hablábamos, pero no nos contestaba. Había quedado tonto por los golpes que le dieron.
So the next project, of course I will answer questions about this project, we don't have time. Anyway, this is, the public came from inside of Slabola and was a spectacle inside and joined the public outside. Another project was the statue. This is a different type of symbolic form. The city, the statue, the monuments, sculptural monuments that are also very suitable to be used as masks through which people can speak. In this case, there was Union Square in New York City, and the monument to Abraham Lincoln during the Veterans Day, which corresponds to the end of First World War anniversaries in Europe, in the United States, but it's called Veterans Day in the United States. So through this sculpture, veterans from Afghanistan, from Vietnam as well, and Iraq were speaking about their experiences during the war, but also after the war. And all of them actually suffering post-traumatic stress. So here they became monuments. Well, themselves are already living monuments to their own trauma, but they're usually silent monuments. So this project helps them to become speaking monuments. In fact, take on position on the pedestal, and not only to speak as from personal perspective, but make themselves seen as historical, because breaking the silence about trauma in public space is actually also the path of healing from traumatic condition, but also as a path for people to open up and listen without fear to traumatized people. So that is an important part of public space function.
You don't know how to defend yourself. In a wartime situation, they train you for different combat duties, but they never train you for the actual event. So the actual event is when all your human senses go into withdrawals or go into overload, that's when you start smelling the blood. That's when you can distinguish the body, how far it is by the smell of the blood and the raw and the flesh, decomposed flesh. You can smell either one of them from 100 meters. You know where somebody is dead at. It's because of the downwind brought the scent over to you. It makes you shake even without having anything in front of you that makes you scared. It makes you shake. It's horrifying, these dreams.
So another project I'd like to share with you, the last one, is the use of specially designed equipment in public space, communicative media equipment, that also could be used as a mask through which people can open up and speak. In this type of work, I use technology of drones, augmenting it, adding things. So my first sketch is pretty naive, but in fact tend to be reality. Adding screens and speakers to the drone allows people to speak as if there were angels, as if there were somewhere else speaking from the sky, telling the truth. Much easier to speak this way and easier to focus and listen. So those augmented drone with the speaker and screens. That's I've been early testing just to make sure that actually works. And also the process of recording, which is true with all of my projects, is as important as actual event. It sometimes takes a year to actually re-record, and finally tell something that nobody wants to hear, or it's very hard to say directly. So those are the way recordings are done for this type of work, to make sure that the image is stabilized, it can fit the screens. I'm talking about eyes, but the voice just recorded the microphone.
Thank you, Kshistov. I think we have to wrap up here to give the word also to other speakers. And now let me bring back.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, we are very short in time, so we would love to hear more. Thanks for showing us these three very powerful projects. And I'd like to bring back Rishard Klющinski to continue our conversation and to open it up more broadly towards discussion about experience, memory, and identity. Please, Rishard.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I want to talk about some theoretical issues related to relationship between art and memory. It came from my research I made a couple of years ago when I was preparing a book, when I wrote, among others, about works by Kshisztof Водичко, Sania Ivekovic, Luz Maria Sanchez, and few other, like Masaki Fujihata. And I used two theories, two concepts. One is made by Celia Lurie, and this is the concept of prosthetic memory. She dedicated this concept directly to photography. For her, photography is displaced from the act of seeing. When you watch the photography, you watch something abstract, something which can't bring you closer to what is reference of this photography. So memory in this case is rather abstract. It's not, it can't move you. It can't move your emotions. This is just the reference. And I assume that this is not only about photography. This is about all kinds of documents we study, we examine, we try to use as a source of information. But this is like what you rewrote about photography, displaced, related in an abstract way. On the other side, there is a concept of Marianne Hirsch, a concept of post-memory. Post-memory is something else. Actually, it came out from the research of several generations of Jews who never experienced the Holocaust, but they can feel it same way like they express it. So this is about inherited memory, memory that you can process in certain way to make it close to you, to make it yours. So this is the difference between abstract reference and abstract and prosthetic memory and post-memory or living memory, how it's put Sania Ivekovic. She made an interesting performance, and it was very symptomatic for me. It was the piece Rohrbach Living Memorial, the work from 2005. She did it in Austria. She used the photograph made in 1940s near Belzec concentration camp. It was a photography of a group of Roma people who just came, was transported to this camp. They were sitting on the grass in the field, waiting to be dislocated in the camp. And Sania used this photography as a starting point. She invited residents of Rohrbach, a small city in Austria, just to come one day for a couple of hours or for some time, just to perform this photography. They were asked to sit down on the grass like those people on the photography and just stay for some time, try to feel it, try to make this photograph part of consciousness, part of emotions. And this is why I thought about the role of art, because very many artists deal with different issues, sometimes tragic, sometimes forms of genocide, but sometimes smaller scales, but important for some community. Kshisztof Водичко, he worked several times with people like, for example, the parents of youngsters, children, being shot in the gun quarrels, for example. Maybe for many people who were not actually residents of this territory, it was not important. It was obviously extremely important for those people, for parents. But art is capable to make it important also for public, for other people. And this is such a process. I think that art can process information, images, videos, texts, into the living experience of those who observe performance, who watch the film, watch the video, observe some other forms activities. So I think that very different forms of art dealing with memory can actually make this important act of transporting past event recorded in abstract prosthetic forms of memories into the living memories, into the emotions, into the real reactions of people who can make these memories of others somehow their own memories, to make them feel what happened and to change their attitude, because this is the possible and the most important result of such a process, that people feel like they survived this, what was the experience of somebody else's, and it can change them, change the attitude of them to the real world, not only to the past, but also to the present, to what is around them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishard, for a very passionate and inspiring speech. I think it is very important indeed to look back at the past in order to somehow shape our present and our future. Any comments or questions from Oksana or Kshiштоф? Or if not, no, then I'd like to let Oksana continue our conversation, and she will elaborate on the Ukrainian context of mapping the memory with means of art, and also why art and science proved to provide essential tools in this venture. Oksana, please.
Thank you very much, Katerina. My greetings to all. I'm really happy to be in this great company here today. And I am here today as a co-curator of the exhibition Trees of Memory, Roots and Runners, which is presented now in Lazня, as Katerina said at the beginning. It is an art and science project working with the tragic past. And maybe really I would be right to note some tendencies of Ukrainian art in this context. Last years, after the Crimea annexation and beginning of the war, the questions of hard past expectedly or unexpectedly appeared quite actual. As Ukrainian artist Nikita Kadan said in 2014, the so-called end of history finished for Ukraine, and Ukrainian culture turned into the big history, so-called big history. It's not about the importance of the country for world community, but about the inner sense of breaking the time. If the time is broken, we feel that history is present through this break of time. Maybe I will illustrate this feeling with the work of Ukrainian artist Zhana Kadyrova. fear and hope. So this is a feeling of broken world in Ukraine through the war and annexation. The situation of total confusion or the broken world forced contemporary Ukrainians to seek the fulcrum in the past. We lost the voice and we lost the instruments, how to understand, how to tell about this new reality. And the historical situation of the social confusion and loss of the voice appeared in new light and entailed new reflections. Now we see how the wounds of the tragic past silence during the Soviet times, for example, could stimulate the conflicts of the contemporary society. The roots of these conflicts lie in contemporary life, but the appellation to the past, to the historical justice, makes the critical thinking impossible. In this situation, artists create the space for reflection. I mentioned Nikita Kadan, and for example, Nikita Kadan works with the themes of instrumentalization of the past in ideological games. He works with the theme of immorality of instrumentalization of victims' images, etc. The project, The Bones Where Intermingles, revealed the political violence which declare the care of victims, but really use them as an instrument in contemporary political games. Kadan works with the figures of silence for Ukrainian nationalist mythology. How to go further? And here you can see his work, Pogrom. He works with photography and transform it in drawing with the coal. And he shows the using of images of dead people in fake use. Sometimes the antagonistic political forces use the same images. The image of victim and image of hero appears in focus of artist attention. And the next project I want to mention, I will mention only a few points, is a project of Anton Lapov, Ukrainian art and science artist, who proposed the project with absolutely different but simultaneously very close message. His project, Hero, you see the screen of this project. This project is a computer program which picks out from internet the images Googled by the word hero in a certain moment. The visitor, a person who looks at this screen, appears challenged in his or her expectations when meet at the screen the faces of heroes from different sides of the conflict. The historical images are intermingled here with the contemporary military faces, and this creates such a situation of meeting of different times. And now we are in Ukraine in this situation of meeting of different times contemporary. The wounds of nowadays resonates to the wounds of the past. Maybe now it's a moment when we understand quite well that questioning of the past answers the questions of today. It's not about history, it's about us here and now. The questioning of today context is a core of our project, Trees of Memory, Roots and Runners. And maybe it's important to say a few words about our approach. Why do we decide to use art and science instruments? The picture of the future is checked with the relations with the past. The memory of one of the most tragic places of Holocaust by bullets in Ukraine, Babin Yar in Kiev, appears now a battlefield of narratives. The Holocaust memory was silenced in Soviet times. was dissolved in a common memory of Soviet people without notion of nationalities or something individual. In times of independent Ukraine, the prohibition went into the past, but the other problem appeared, the contest of memories. The memory of Babin Yar is sometimes accompanied with a source of light quarrel where the essence of the tragedy could be buried. The best gesture in this place is a silent mooning. Between the prohibition to speak and the silent mooning lies the space of walking through the past, the space of speaking. So we saw the trees of Babin Yar as the witnesses of memory, not the witnesses of event, but the witnesses of memory. The alive creatures whose nature is different from human, but who touch the past with their roots and rise their message up to the young runners. They do not participate in any discussions, but they tell their story constantly. The French team, the artist Olga Kiselova and scientists from the French Center of Scientific Research, developed equipment which allowed to record the electromagnetic impulses inside the trunks of the trees of Babin Yar. This record was visualized, and you can see the exhibition, the moving images of the trees' voices. So you can see the photo of the exhibition. So without any sign, it's silent voices. Each voice of the tree is individual, is very important for us. So the correlation of the clear scientific data and the artistic metaphor is important for us. It is not a fantasy about some communication with the trees, some energies moving from space or from somewhere. It's about us. It's important to look for ourselves through the lens of other living creature, very different from us. It's not about tree, I'd like to repeat, it's about human memory, which is sick today. The instruments of art and science allowed us to create our metaphor of the vessel of memory, which contains only the transparent truth and feeds no quarrels. And I'm very grateful to Rishard for notion of this theory of post-memory, and it seems to me that the work in this project is a gesture of post-memory, because quotating Marianne Hirsch, I would like to know that post-memory is constructed memory. Yes, it's not our living memory, but constructed. And now in this project, we try to construct something which will answer for the question of nowadays, for the questions of Ukrainian traumatized society, and to create a look into the future. I remember, Katerina, and I am finishing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oksana. I'm really sorry to interrupt each speaker, because I see that we are just starting, you know, we're like hitting our arms, and of course it would be nice to continue this conversation. That's why I invite you to exchange some comments or questions if there are any. There are, for now, no questions from the audience. So please, if you want to comment on the presentations of your colleagues, this is the moment.
Actually, I'd like to ask Kshistov to say a few words more about the last project he couldn't present fully. I noticed that there were people whose site was recorded. does it mean that those drones traveling, they were in real life connected to the site of those people, or it was just recording?
Well, at this point, it was pre-recorded.
Mm-hmm.
But the project actually is moving to the direction of real-time speech. So it would be very good if those who are speaking, in this case, refugees from Africa or from Afghanistan, they could see the public from the point of view of a drone and ask the public question and listen to the response and respond to the response or question the question. So that would be the ideal way of prosthetic, or the expanding on prosthetic dimension of this device.
Uh-huh. Will it happen in Krakow?
No, because
not yet. Okay, understand.
Not yet, but it will happen soon, I hope.
I'm looking forward.
We can invent a situation that will help us to move forward in this direction together, and hopefully in some next project.
Mm-hmm. Good.
There is a question related to this topic. Rishard, please, would you make a parallel with the experience we have with remote online experience or with online events, festivals, for example, when talking about prosthetic memory, when we do not have in-person perception of the place? Could you recommend particular authors or publications in this regard? Thank you. From Nadia Krasteva.
Maybe I can't propose references for reading just immediately, but I recommend this person to contact me later on with email. I will try to make this dialogue. But I think that in case of internet and our experiences, I think that there is a wide varieties of very different forms of them. There are some experiences which are just in real time. We can interact with remote situations, locations, people. So I think that such situations require different theoretical framing than just prosthetic memory. In case of prosthetic memory, we have to do with something which is frozen. Frozen abstract construction that could encourage us to move intellectually towards certain direction, but rather can't provide the real experience or can't move our senses, our emotions. And this is the role of art. But anyway, in case of internet, obviously when we have to do with pre-recorded material, it could be possible to refer to such events with the concept of prosthetic memory. But as I said, internet can propose us a variety of different experiences, and some of them go beyond this concept, and some others still look for being properly theoretically described.
Thank you. Another question to everyone. Art helps to make memory alive, but is it more complicated to engage the audience to watch projects with the topic of traumatic past? Who would like to answer? Kshиштоф, maybe you have a very rich experience.
I could not understand exactly the question.
The question is that the projects that deal with trauma evoke memories, but the memories not always, or rather very often, are not so pleasant. So is it more difficult to engage with the audience when the projects deal with traumatic past?
Yes, it's very difficult. I think the issue is not only of fearless speaking, but fearless listening. So in fact, we have to create conditions for one party to open up without fear and share unspeakable experiences, and other party to come closer, open ear without fear. We are fearful of strangers because of what they're going to say. You know, we don't want to deal with those problems. You know, in fact, that invokes our own problems. You know, this is important. In the stranger, we see our own strangeness. So it's kind of the art is incredible potential or opportunity to deal with the uncanny feeling and all of those fears, because we create something that is partially real, partially artificial. You know, it's an artifice through which you can actually confront our own strangeness and uncanny feelings. So, but yes, it's very tough, and but I think I managed to really keep the public listening for quite a while. I could see in Tijuana that people embracing each other, and it was about domestic violence and against women. Men and women were embracing each other, but they're very stiff embrace. They got their bones, you know, what was being said, because being spoken via the building, via the symbolic structure with which they already established a relationship. So it was their structure, and then suddenly somebody else was there. They have to share the roommate through that monument. So that this is the way to do it. Not direct confrontation, communication, very hard, but art is an important intermediate vehicle for such listening and speaking.
Thank you. We have one more question, but I'm afraid we don't have much time left. It's just 1 minute. So I'll probably wrap up here. And I want to thank all our participants, our speakers, for their presentations. I also would like to thank our team and partners who made this event possible. And our audience who followed the discussion and posed their questions. I'm really sorry that we were not able to answer the last one. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.